The human species that almost beat us, then vanished overnight. A cave, on an island most people can't name. Bones on the floor. Not animal bones, human bones. But the skeleton is 3 feet tall. In 2003, archaeologists dug into a cave on the island of Flores in Indonesia. They expected to find nothing new. Instead, they found a skull the size of a grapefruit. At first, they thought it was a child. Then they checked the teeth. Fully grown. An adult. An adult human standing just over 3 feet tall. They named her LB1. The internet gave her a different name. The Hobbit. But here's what should scare you. She wasn't alone. There were more. An entire population. Living on this one island. For over 100,000 years. And that's not even the strange part. Her brain was tiny. About the size of a chimpanzee's. By every rule of human evolution, that should mean simple, primitive, barely capable. But next to her bones, archaeologists found something that didn't fit. Stone tools, small, precise, deliberately shaped. The kind of tools you don't stumble into by accident. The kind that take planning. Nearby they found something even stranger. Burned animal bones. Evidence of fire, controlled and used again and again in the same spot. A creature with a brain a third the size of ours was making tools. Was controlling fire. Was possibly hunting in coordinated groups. Scientists still argue about how. A brain that small isn't supposed to hold that much. Something about her wiring was different. Efficient in a way we don't fully understand. And this wasn't a fluke. A one-off genius in a family of savages. This was a whole population doing this. For tens of thousands of years. Which raises the real question. What were they hunting with those tools? Flores was not a gentle place. It ran on its own rules. On most of Earth, elephants are giants and rats are small. On Flores, it was inverted. The elephants, a dwarf species called stegodon, had shrunk down to the size of a large pig. The rats had grown to the size of small dogs. And sharing this island with the Hobbits were Komodo dragons. Real ones. Apex predators, up to 10 feet long, capable of taking down prey many times their size. This is called island dwarfism and gigantism. Cut off from the mainland with limited food, large animals shrink. With no large predators to fear, small animals grow. And humans, it turns out, are not exempt from this rule. Some researchers believe the hobbits shrank for the same reason. Isolated, resource poor. Evolution trimming the body down to what the island could sustain. A miniature human built to survive on scraps, sharing a jungle with dragons. That alone would make this one of the strangest chapters in human history. But it gets worse, because the timeline doesn't add up the way it should. For decades, the assumption was simple. Modern humans evolved. Older, more primitive species died out long before we arrived. Clean handoff, no overlap, no competition. Flores broke that assumption. The most recent Hobbit remains date to around 50,000 years ago. Homo sapiens, us, reached Southeast Asia around the same time, which means, for a window of time on this same stretch of the planet, two different species of human may have been alive together, maybe even aware of each other. Imagine that moment, our ancestors arriving on a foreign shore, encountering something that looks human, walks like a human, uses tools like a human, but is not us. 3 feet tall, sharing a jungle with giant rats and Komodo dragons, and now, us. For thousands of years, scientists assumed this kind of encounter was fiction. Then something else surfaced, something that suggests it wasn't just fossils that remembered them. On Flores, long before any scientist arrived, the local people already had a story. They spoke of small, hairy creatures living deep in the caves and forests. Creatures that could mimic human speech, that stole food from villages at night. That vanished the moment you tried to look at them directly. They called them the Ebu Gogo. For years, outsiders dismissed it as folklore, A monster story, nothing more. Then the bones came out of the ground, small, human, from the same island. Suddenly an old legend looked less like myth and more like memory. A story passed down for thousands of years about something that may have actually been there, watching from the tree line, long after science says they should have been gone. Which brings us to the darkest question of all. What actually happened to them? The honest answer is, we don't fully know. But there are theories, and none of them are comforting. One theory points to a massive volcanic eruption on Flores, one severe enough to wipe out an isolated population trapped on a single island with nowhere to run. Another theory points to us, Homo sapiens, arriving with better tools, better coordination, larger numbers, competing for the same limited resources on the same limited island. In nearly every case in history where our species has crossed paths with another, the other species did not survive the encounter. Neanderthals, Denisovans, and possibly the Hobbits of Flores, not conquered in some dramatic war, just slowly outcompeted, pushed to the margins, then gone. One day, in a cave on an island most of the world had never heard of, the last one died, and for the first time in over 1,000,000 years, this line of humanity had no one left to inherit the world it had adapted for so carefully. Here's the part that should stay with you. For most of human history, we were never alone. Other kinds of humans lived alongside us, adapted differently, solved survival in their own way. We are not the inevitable outcome of evolution. We are simply the ones who happened to still be standing when the story ended. Somewhere on Flores, that story is still buried in the ground, waiting for someone to dig it back up.